The smarter your mind becomes, the smaller your world feels. Not because people leave, but because you start seeing too much to stay comfortably close. When your mind works deeply, connection doesn't come easily. Not because you don't want people, but because your thinking moves differently. While most conversations live on the surface, an intelligent mind instinctively dives underneath. It listens not just to words, but to pauses. It notices contradictions, emotional gaps, hidden intentions. And once you start seeing beneath the surface, it becomes almost impossible to enjoy staying on it. At first, this depth feels like a gift. You understand situations faster. You read people accurately. You sense where things are going long before they arrive. But slowly, something changes. Small talk begins to feel hollow. Repeated jokes lose their warmth. Conversations that once felt normal start sounding rehearsed, predictable, empty. You're not trying to be different. Your mind simply refuses to slow down to match the pace around you. Intelligent minds don't connect through noise, they connect through meaning, and meaning is rare. Most social interaction isn't designed for depth. It's designed for comfort. It rewards agreement, not curiosity. It prefers simplicity over truth. When you question too much, think too deeply, or feel too intensely, people sense it. Sometimes they admire it. Often they distance themselves from it. So the intelligent mind learns something early. Depth creates distance, not intentionally, but inevitably. You begin filtering yourself. You hold back thoughts that would take too long to explain. You simplify ideas that deserve complexity. You smile at conversations you've already mentally outgrown. And each time you do this, a small part of you disconnects. Over time, that disconnection becomes familiar, comfortable even, because being mentally alone starts to feel safer than being constantly misunderstood. There's also a quiet exhaustion that comes with depth. Explaining your inner world feels like translating a language no one asked to learn. So eventually you stop translating. You observe more, you speak less. People may assume you're distant, introverted, or uninterested, but the truth is darker. You're just tired of shrinking your mind to fit rooms that were never built for it. And the irony is this: intelligent people don't feel lonely because they lack people. They feel lonely because they rarely meet minds that resonate. Real connection requires alignment, not just emotionally, but intellectually. Without that alignment, closeness feels performative, forced, empty, and emptiness hurts more when you can clearly see it. So solitude becomes a refuge, not a weakness, not a failure, but a place where the mind doesn't have to explain itself, where thoughts can exist without being edited, where silence feels honest. But even refuge has a shadow, because while depth protects you from shallow bonds, it also limits how many bonds you can form at all. The world feels louder, people feel further away, and slowly, quietly, loneliness doesn't arrive as pain, it arrives as clarity. You don't feel misunderstood, you feel alone among noise. With intelligence comes awareness, and awareness is not gentle. It doesn't arrive to comfort you. It arrives to expose what others would rather ignore. Intelligent minds don't just experience people, they read them. Tone shifts, micro-expressions, inconsistencies between words and behavior, nothing slips by unnoticed. What feels like intuition is often pattern recognition built from observation, and once this awareness sharpens, it never turns off. At first, this heightened perception feels empowering. You understand situations faster than others. You sense emotional undercurrents before they surface. You can predict outcomes while everyone else is still reacting. But the mind slowly realizes a disturbing truth. Most human interaction runs on illusion. Politeness hides disinterest. Charm masks insecurity. Confidence often conceals fear. And when you start seeing these layers clearly, connection becomes complicated. Awareness isolates before it protects. Because once you recognize hidden motives, it becomes harder to trust sincerity. Compliments feel strategic. Friendliness feels conditional. Even affection starts to raise quiet questions. Not because you're cynical, but because you're observant. And observation changes how safe the world feels. You begin noticing how often people perform versions of themselves rather than reveal them. How conversations are shaped by what sounds good, not what feels true. How many relationships survive not because of honesty, but because of mutual avoidance of discomfort. For the intelligent mind, this realization creates distance. Not outwardly, but internally. You're present, yet detached, listening, yet analyzing, smiling, yet alert. And this constant awareness is exhausting. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unsee emotional manipulation once you've learned its patterns. You can't feel innocent excitement in situations where you already sense the ending. So while others move freely through social spaces, you move carefully, watching, measuring, protecting your inner world from being disturbed. Eventually, this awareness starts acting like a filter. You choose your words more carefully, you reveal less, you test trust before offering it. People may feel you're guarded, but they don't realize that awareness has already shown you how easily openness can be used against you. Intelligent minds learn that vulnerability in the wrong hands becomes a liability. So connection becomes selective, rare, delayed. You're not closed off, you're cautious. Because you've seen how often people misunderstand honesty, misuse empathy, and mistake depth for weakness. Awareness teaches you that emotional safety is not guaranteed by closeness. Sometimes, distance is the safer option. This is where loneliness deepens, not as sadness, but as separation. You're surrounded by people, yet you feel apart from them. Because they interact from emotion, while you operate from perception. They feel first, think later. You think first, and feel only when it's safe. And this difference quietly reshapes your relationships. Awareness does eventually protect you. It prevents blind attachment. It shields you from emotional traps. It keeps you from investing in what will eventually drain you. But protection has a cost. The cost is innocence. The cost is ease. The cost is closeness. Because once you see people clearly, you can't unsee them. And once clarity replaces illusion, loneliness becomes the price of truth. You didn't lose people. You saw them. As intelligence deepens, the world doesn't expand, it narrows, not in opportunities, but in connection. The more you understand how minds work, the more selective your inner circle becomes. Not by choice at first, but by necessity. Because intelligent minds don't crave attention, they crave resonance. And resonance is rare. You begin to notice that many relationships are built on convenience, routine, or shared distraction, rather than genuine understanding. People bond over habits, not values. Over proximity, not alignment. For most, that's enough. But for an intelligent mind, something essential feels missing. Conversations feel like exchanges of words, not ideas. Time is spent together, but growth is absent. And without growth, connection slowly suffocates. So the circle shrinks, not because you push people away, but because fewer people can meet you where your mind lives. You're not searching for perfection, you're searching for depth, curiosity, emotional intelligence, and honesty. You want conversations that stretch the mind, not numb it. You want presence that feels intentional, not habitual. When these qualities are absent, closeness feels artificial. This is where loneliness becomes misunderstood. Intelligent individuals are often surrounded by people, yet still feel isolated, because being around others doesn't equal being understood. True connection happens when someone can follow your thought patterns, challenge your ideas without ego, and sit with complexity without needing to simplify it. When that level of engagement is missing, interaction feels draining rather than fulfilling. Over time, you stop forcing bonds that don't feed you. You stop chasing social validation. You stop lowering your standards just to avoid silence. Because silence, at least, doesn't pretend, it doesn't misinterpret you, it doesn't require you to edit your thoughts to remain accepted. So solitude becomes a logical choice, not an emotional failure. But this logic carries weight. The fewer equals you meet, the heavier loneliness feels. Not because you want more people, but because you want fewer, deeper ones. And when those are scarce, the absence becomes noticeable. You feel it in moments when you have something meaningful to say, but no one to say it to. When you grow internally, but no one grows alongside you. Intelligent minds often outgrow their environment. The humor stops landing. The advice feels shallow. The conversations circle the same ideas you moved past long ago. And when growth isn't mirrored, distance forms naturally. You don't announce it. You don't dramatize it. You simply drift inward. This inward drift isn't arrogance, it's alignment. You're choosing quality over quantity, depth over noise, truth over comfort. But the price of this choice is isolation, because the higher your standards for connection, the fewer people can reach them. And this is the paradox. Intelligence teaches you that companionship is not about numbers, but about mental symmetry. Yet it also teaches you how rare that symmetry is. So while others feel connected through constant interaction, intelligent minds feel connected only through rare moments of mutual understanding. Until those moments appear, loneliness becomes the space between you and the few who could truly see you. Not many can. Eventually, silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling intentional. For intelligent minds, this shift doesn't happen suddenly. It grows out of repetition. The repetition of being misunderstood, the repetition of explaining thoughts that were never truly heard, the repetition of watching people respond to simplified versions of you, not the real thing. Over time, speaking feels less like connection and more like exposure. When your thoughts are layered, words become risky. You know how easily nuance can be twisted, how quickly depth can be reduced to something shallow or uncomfortable. You've seen curiosity turn into judgment, honesty turn into distance, so you learn to pause before speaking, to measure whether the room can hold what you're about to say. Most of the time it can't. This is where silence becomes safer than misunderstanding. It's not that intelligent minds lack expression, it's that they've learned expression often comes with a cost. When you think deeply, people don't just hear your words, they react to what your words imply. Complexity unsettles them. Questions threaten certainty. And instead of engaging, many retreat, deflect, or dismiss. After enough of these moments, you stop offering your inner world freely. So you speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because saying it rarely leads where you hope. You start choosing conversations that feel neutral, predictable, low risk. And while this protects you from friction, it also distances you from intimacy, because real closeness requires being seen, and being seen has proven dangerous. Misunderstanding cuts deeper for intelligent minds because they can see it happening in real time. They notice when someone hears only fragments of their meaning, when a complex idea is reduced to a label, when a vulnerability is interpreted as weakness, and once that awareness sets in, you begin preemptively withdrawing, not emotionally, but verbally. Silence becomes control. Silence prevents distortion. Silence preserves your inner clarity. In silence, your thoughts remain whole, unedited, untouched, no explanations required, no defenses necessary, and slowly, quietly, silence starts feeling like home. But silence has consequences, because while it shields you from being misunderstood, it also limits how deeply others can know you. People connect to what they can access. And when you lock your inner world away, connection becomes one-sided. You observe, you listen, you understand others deeply, but they only know the surface of you. This creates a subtle loneliness, not loud, not dramatic, just persistent. You're present but unseen, heard but not known. And over time, you stop expecting to be understood at all. You stop correcting assumptions. You stop clarifying misinterpretations. You let people believe whatever version of you feels CS to them. And that's when loneliness solidifies, not as pain, but as acceptance. Intelligent minds often choose solitude not because they reject people, but because solitude doesn't require translation. It doesn't misunderstand tone. It doesn't interrupt with shallow conclusions. In solitude, your mind can breathe, your thoughts can stretch, your emotions don't need justification. Yet the irony remains. The same silence that protects you also keeps others at a distance. The same restraint that preserves your inner world prevents others from entering it. And so the intelligent mind learns to live with this tension between the desire to be understood and the instinct to stay silent, because at some point you realize something unsettling. Being alone hurts less than being wrongfully known. Intelligence doesn't push people away. It simply removes the illusion that you were ever truly close.